I see you found our little hiding spot in the universe. Don't get too comfortable. This is a place where you will find those with an experience that's out of this world, or possibly deep within your life. I welcome you to the Oracles with James Tyson. Lean forward and listen. We will pull you into a supernatural journey with guests from around the world, each one experiencing some of the most extraordinary phenomena this wee planet has to offer. I wish to invite you to support the program through the Oracles with JamesTyson.com Patreon link. For as little as $3 per month, you qualify for a free monthly psychic reading, a past life regression, and exclusive access to our filmed interviews. Don't lower your guard. That's just the beginning as we give back. When I have reached 2,222 members, we will be giving away monthly trips to supernatural hotspots and conferences across North America. Don't run. I can see you. With a limit of 4,500 Patreon supporters, you will want to get your passports ready, as every third month, we will include paranormal conferences and tours in Europe and Australia. I know you can hear me. Visit theoracleswithjamestyson.com and click on the Patreon link. Where are you listening? That's the Patreon button at theoracleswithjamestyson.com. Now, here are the Oracles with James Tyson.
Thank you, Liam, you crazy little alien, you. And I want to thank you, listener, for tuning in to this episode of the Oracles with James Tyson. I think you're going to have fun. This is a very interesting young woman we're going to bring on all the way from Melbourne, Australia. She is internationally renowned psychic Solreta Antaria. And she's best known as an ET communicator who also speaks light language. Now, we're going to get into light language and find out a little bit more about that. I had never heard of light language before I met Solreta. It's something she has been able to do for a long time in her life, since a little kid when she started bumping into what we lay people know as extraterrestrials, ETs. She's also experienced UFOs for many, many years, and she has been aware through her contacts of other dimensional realities. And she's also helped hundreds of people around the world connect with their own ETs and interdimensional guides, like your spirit guides, but these are ETs and other interdimensional guides. And that assists people on their own mission here on Earth, whatever mission that may be. This shines a light, clarity, and brings a sense of comfort, confirmation, and renewed enthusiasm to their soul paths. So would you like that for your soul path? Maybe we should get a hold of Solreta. Actually, you can check her out. While you're listening to this, why don't you pop open her website, solretapsychicreadings.com. Yes, she's a psychic. Again, that's Solreta, Solreta, Solreta psychicreadings.com. And she does them all over the world, all over the planet. She does travel on Skype and Zoom and whatever else she does travel on Skype and Zoom and whatever other communication devices you may have, even that old thing called a telephone. But she does readings like that. And again, she will connect, it is believed, to extraterrestrial beings and interdimensional beings that are your spirit guides that have been basically assigned to you before birth, along with a whole myriad of different characters that have been connected to you all your life. Now, she studied kinesiology, hypnotherapy, and shamanic studies, and has an advanced diploma in health sciences. And she currently lives in Melbourne, Australia, working as an author, spiritual mentor, teacher, and a YouTube channel host. So when you go to her website, again, solretapsychicreadings.com, click on the homepage and you click on that little YouTube icon and see what she has on YouTube and what she's posted there. It's absolutely fascinating. So let's bring her on. I want to introduce her to you, and you'll find out she is an absolutely fantastic, and you'll find out that she is absolutely an amazing human being. Solreta, how are you today?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me on the show, James.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And it's lovely that I can actually talk to you in the future and know that the world still exists.
Yeah.
Because you're that far, you Australians are that far advanced. It's been a while. It's been over a year since we chatted. And some of the stuff that I mentioned in the opening here, like an ET communicator, and you also speak light language. That to me has always been really, really interesting. And for my listener who hasn't met you yet, can you kind of explain what you mean by a light language? And when did the whole ET communication thing start with you?
Yeah, sure. So I guess the earliest sort of memories that I have are around age 4. So for me, I always had this like streaming consciousness coming in from higher self that was, or more of like my soul self, that felt this other language. And I could always hear it as like an inner voice or inner dialogue, but coming from my soul. So English to me feels kind of like a second language. And sometimes we don't quite have the words to express what we're feeling to be able to convey, certain things. It's a very limited language. With the light language, it's a language that's understood and spoken more at an empathic level. So when you speak it, it's not like word for word translation, like, Spanish to English or anything. It's really a language that's more full bodied. So when you speak the light language, people listening that are more empathic and receptive will sometimes see things. Sometimes the physical reality will disappear and they'll sort of be seeing themselves amongst the stars. Sometimes they'll feel and notice like different colors or different sensations within the body. A lot of people also experience like upgrades and also like different vibrational changes happening within their energy field and their body.
Oh, so
yeah.
Now, you have some meditation CDs, don't you? Or
Yeah, I do, and also on Spotify as well.
On Spotify. Do you get into...
And iTunes and pretty much everywhere else.
Okay. iTunes and everywhere. Do you get into the light language when you're on those recordings?
Yeah, so I've got a light language album that's out as well. And some people even put it on while they're cleaning the house. Other people put it on to go to sleep at night. Others while they're meditating.
Oh, that is interesting. That is really interesting. Where did you... Well, I guess you said, at about 4 years old, it was kind of, that was always kind of coming to you then. Over time, did you figure out exactly how and why it was you that has this? Yeah,
so it was at 21, I met some others that also spoke light language, and we were able to understand and communicate together. And the other cool thing that happened last February was I was flown by Japanese TV to go and meet a lady in Italy, and she also spoke light language, and they wanted to see if we could understand each other. And so it was really cool. We had a translator who he was Italian, he spoke English and Japanese and Italian. So when I was speaking to this lady, I could see, hear and feel this. It's almost like a telepathic connection sometimes when you're speaking to someone else who speaks light language. There's like a soul understanding. So I translated from light language into English what I was hearing and seeing and feeling. And then they translated from her Italian because she didn't speak English and I don't speak Italian. So they were able to find out that we were saying the same thing. So that was really cool.
Wow, that is really cool. Now, the light language, is there a language on Earth that's anywhere near it?
Not that I've found. I've heard some people have said to me, oh, it sounds, a little bit Hawaiian, or it sounds, like it's from here or from there. But yeah, it's because it's not like word for word translation, it really is felt empathically in the body and in the emotional field as well.
Okay. Would you be prepared to give me an example?
Yeah, I would love to. So the way I guess I prepare people for hearing it is just to get into that meditative mindset, just to do some deep connected breathing and just to listen and be open and have the awareness of messages or feelings or sensations that come to you when you hear it. And yeah, I'll just speak some and then I'll translate after.
Okay.
Ya sanla naru nara karnarush. Malanaira toyara nara sutoyara. Ialanaira takayaro sonaira taka. Ialanaira takaruna satoro. Mahaya nara tasgara no satara. Iashaya nara tokayara na sotara. Mihalna nira tokar. Iasaya nara tokayara tokori. So what I was saying then was talking about, this time and space that we have between us right now. So you in Canada, myself in Australia, and everyone else placed where they are around the world, that's actually kind of like an illusion. So in spirit, like we're all connected as one right here, right now. So it really is that, that physical distance really is that illusion. And we're all working together, on a mission to help raise consciousness and to work together for the betterment, not only of the planet, but also for people and for humanity and for the animals. And really, it's just, I guess, about having that awareness that we are connected. And when we have that awareness and feeling and sensation within the body, especially within the heart, then, those other illusions and realities start to drop away. So it's really where we start to get working with more of the psychic senses as well, which is something that really excites me.
Oh, wow. That is interesting. Well, actually, you were saying that, and I was trying to focus, and all I got was like a candle and a candlestick. Like like somebody would walk around an old house with, holding a candle in front of them and lighting the way as they were moving. So it was kind of weird. I was hoping you were something was going to come up to do with lighting your way or a candle, because I was like, oh, I think I have it. But maybe not.
No, you did. So what you said was perfect, because the way in which the beings and the way that I see things as well is that we are actually all these little lights. So that candle was probably your soul light. And, all of these soul lights, when we're switched on, it's easier for others to help find us and to connect to us. There's this cool Instagram account. I think it's called Find the Others. And that's kind of like what we're doing, and part of, you doing this show. It really helps others to connect and to find us and for us to find them.
So it's called Finding Others?
I think it's called Find the Others. It's
Find
this cool.
the Others.
I think so. It's on Instagram, but I love that idea of that, in us putting information out there, we're really helping to reconnect and to, when all those lights come together and form, a connected grid around the planet, that's where we really start to see consciousness rise and change. And we see, big vibrational shifts and positive movement happening.
Oh, let's stick with the positive movement. Good Lord.
Yes.
So much of the other stuff out there right now, it's just, I know the positive stuff is like oil pushing the negative water away, but we just need more push, more of that positive, very upbeat way of dealing with things, as opposed to the real negative stories that we get daily forced on us. So it's kind of fighting the weeds with a machete, a positive machete. Yeah. And I shouldn't say the word fighting, it's just moving.
I guess the way is right.
Yeah, you had experience with ETs when you were a kid. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so for some strange reason, a lot of it stems back to age 4. I think that's where maybe whether more of my consciousness came into my body, but always experiencing waking up through the night, or that sensation of being watched going to sleep. Seeing things in my room, because I've seen things since I can remember. But yeah, always having a sensation or knowing that when I was going off to sleep, that, that something was going to enter my room, or that, I would be off onto different traveling experiences and on other dimensions and planes. So as a child, I really didn't want to go to sleep. I used to fight sleep every single night and always wake up really early as well. So some of the early experiences I remember around that time were almost like school-like experiences. And it's funny because I've had other ET contactees, some that are public, some that aren't, recall, seeing me on board different UFOs in this kind of learning situation. So some of us will go and teach and learn on board UFOs and craft. And it's interesting when you start to meet others that you've had experiences with in other realms or other, on UFOs and things. It's really interesting how you can be talking about one part of like your version of what you've seen and experienced, and they really fill in the gaps for you. On the other part, I think it's really helpful with such, sometimes it can be, less tangible than this physical reality. But I think that at the same time, it doesn't mean that it's less important or more important. I think we just experience many different states of reality. And I think this is something that, the human consciousness is really just starting to understand. I think those that meditate really are able to pick up the concept a lot easier.
Is it because those who meditate are already possibly open to that kind of way of thinking to start with and makes it easier for them?
Yeah, I definitely think they're open to more of that. I guess if we talk about it in terms of frequency, they're more able to tune into those kind of frequencies. And I think it's about subtle awareness, because some of, like, this 3D reality, for example, is such a dense awareness place. But when we, or I guess as a galactic and a global community, we're really starting to step up the game, and we're starting to notice these frequencies and awarenesses. And it's interesting because our technology is catching up. So in terms of like UFO sightings, that kind of thing, we're able to capture them on iPhones and things now, whereas like in the past, the experiences, we weren't really able to capture and to share them in the way that we are now. And I think that this is a sign not just of the times, but a sign of like where humanity is at. Yeah. Which I think is so exciting.
Yeah, I agree. It's not only is we're getting the technology to capture things like UFO sightings, but we're also becoming more open to the possibility of whether it's extraterrestrials or a ghost or things that were always kept under wraps for the longest time. You didn't want to say it out loud at a party. Yeah. or having coffee with your friends. Oh, I saw an ET the other day, and it was walking. Yeah. Big gray thing walked down the street, and then guess who's not getting invited for coffee anymore?
And I think that's perhaps like, as a female, where that's a little bit easier. And I always have been a little rebellious in terms of like pushing the envelope and wanting to create and inspire change and be able to, share and talk about all of this stuff. Because as a kid, my guides would tell me to, just be careful like who you talk about it around. And, even in the very young ages, not to say anything, because, it's not always been this easy to talk about it as it is now. A lot of things have shifted in the last couple of decades. We're very lucky with how openly we can talk about certain things, but I think it's also about, navigating our way around that and being very specific about who we know that we can talk about this stuff with.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's I'm finding it's actually opening up a lot more now. There's what used to be the forbidden thing to mention, like, as I say, at coffee, you can kind of get your way into it, and people are more fascinated about it. And it may be just even as basic as, oh, look at all these ghost hunter shows on TV, and which then plants the seed that there's something after death, and that opens the door for the other things, and maybe a psychic reading, and what do you think about psychics? And you do readings, and from our listener, she does them for people all over the world. If you go to her website, solretapsychicreadings.com, and Solreta spelled Solreta, solretapsychicreadings.com, and she does them on Skype. She does them for everyone around the world. You can actually, one of the other things too, is we talked about your oracle cards, because they're Syrian, and I was going to get back to your ET experiences on that, but you can buy her albums. You can buy a meditation album, her book, Soul Star, which is written a few years back, but a wonderful little book. And I'm going to jump back because sticking on the ET thing. You have some oracle cards, and the Syrian star cards. Now, are Syrians, or I'm really bad with my ETs, but the ETs that you had contact with as a kid, and most likely still now, is that kind of where they would be from? Are they Syrian, Stark?
So for me, I've had a lot of contact with various different beings. And I think that's also because, I do work with the ET communication, and also to do with like the aura drawings that I work with. I'll quite often be working with people's ET guides. So I think I've had a lot of interaction and visitation from, all over the galaxy. Some of the beings that or some of the places that my soul resonates with is like the star system Sirius, Pleiades, Antares. And I think, on a physical level, sometimes we can start to take on some of these physical characteristics, and we tend to look a certain way depending on, where we might be from. But yeah, I think if we look at ourselves as, one fraction of an oversoul, so it might be like the physical earth expression. And then we'll have, like on Sirius, I might look like another version of myself, and, and so on, depending on like where that energy is. Oh, the other thing that I did want to mention too, in terms of talking about like awareness and things, the thing that like my guides are just guiding me to talk about is like in terms of brain power that we are currently using. So I feel like that where we're heading is about expanding our brain power. And I think meditation is such a powerful tool for really enhancing skills and gifts that we already have. And working with the psychic senses, is also expanding that brain power that we're using too. So I think we're kind of running, at a lower power, in terms of like just working with the 3D earth reality senses. And the more that we can meditate and work and expand these psychic senses, the more of the hardware that we're born with, we're going to be using a lot more of that. So looking at it in terms of, hardware and psychic skills and meditation as kind of the new software that we're installing.
Okay. So I'm not going to have to die to get an upgrade. I can just meditate and get an upgrade. Good.
Exactly. It's like we're getting those little update reminders flash up, saying like, ready to install update. And I think it really is about just choosing to do this, and it doesn't have to be hard. And, it's just step by step, day by day, bit by bit. And, we're really going to be stepping into expanded states of consciousness.
How long? Well, when you meditate, how long would that be in a day? Do you meditate in the morning and at night, or just when you get up, or when you go to sleep?
So for me, back in college, I really fought it. So a lot of my friends would meditate, and I would do it every now and then. And when I did it, I loved it. But I didn't like the idea. I think because I thought it was like homework, and being sort of like a little bit of a rebellious student. I wanted to have. I guess, like, the product of it, but without having to do the work. So when I actually let go of all of that and thought, okay, well, it's not homework, I do get amazing experiences when I meditate, and I really sort of changed my thinking around that. I noticed such a massive difference. So currently, like, I meditate morning and evening, and I notice such a difference to my day and such a difference to my awareness and the peace that I'll take through the day. But not only that, the messages and things that we're able to open up to, it's just so much easier to understand and to feel into that.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's, I've been doing it, primarily I was doing it to fall asleep. And now I have a number of reasons to actually do it, to get me to where I can sleep through the whole night without having some strange dead person come in and tap me on the foot and want to talk to me. Keeping them basically outside of the bedroom while I'm sleeping. But,
yeah,
there's, I do it. I had a forgiveness meditation that was literally downloaded to me one night. It just came flowing into me, and I did it for 6 or 7 nights in a row. And at the end of it, it was just don't have to. All the stuff and all the bullies that bugged me and anyone who hurt me in my entire life, don't carry it anymore. I gave it all back to them. It just took 6 or 7 nights of forgiveness, and it was gone. And it was like, oh, I'm 3 inches taller now. But if I wasn't...
How cool is that? That's that software that I was talking about. So it's all there. It's all there in the field for us to download. And, when we start to inquire and we start to ask questions, or we start to feel, that we perhaps like need a certain upgrade, it really is feeling into it and allowing that space to come. And I think that's what meditation does. It allows us to get into that space where we're more receptive.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we're talking to Solreta Antaria. She is a wonderful human being, possibly human being, out of Melbourne, Australia. And again, go to her website, solretapsychicreadings.com. She is a ET UFO experiencer and much, much more. Now, well, I've got you sitting down. I hope. Tell me about your first UFO sighting.
Yeah, so that goes back to early childhood. And it was interesting because at the time I thought it was just a really, really magical dream. And it was one of those dreams that still, sometimes when you have those experiences and you can still recall them and see it, in the same light that you saw it back in when it actually happened. Mm-hmm. So for me, in this dreamlike experience, which is quite often projected as a dreamlike experience when you have ET contact, or it will, sometimes the UFOs or the ETs will create like a screen memory. That's quite common as well. So some situations the ETs might appear like doctors or like healers in lab coats, that sort of thing. But there'll be a different sensation or a different feeling, or like a different sense or knowing that's associated with this dreamlike experience. So for me, I can still see it clear as anything. I would have been under the age of 10. And I swear that in this experience, it was like Santa's sleigh landing in my backyard. There was flashing lights all around it, which I didn't realize until I had a regression that, hey, that normal story, like with Santa's sleigh, he doesn't really have flashing lights going around on the sleigh. So it was a UFO actually projecting as a screen memory, excuse me, of Santa. So I always loved that, the story of Santa and the magic of it. But in this experience, it was so going for a ride in the sleigh, but being taken to the North Pole. And I remember it was like going through this like wormhole portal experience in it. And I just remember feeling, so magical and so loved, and just that expanded awareness of love as well, that it was like a non-earthly love. And I just remember coming back wishing when I woke in the morning, just wishing that I could go back to that place where I felt such unconditional love. And I think for me, I've been very lucky that even though as a child I was scared of, things in my room and that, but a lot of my ET experiences have been very positive and very, educational and expansive. And, some of the messages that I do get from the ETs, like when they do appear, because I still wake up to them in my bedroom now, sometimes wake up speaking light language in the middle of the night, having communications with these beings. So going from one reality into the other, because sometimes they will jump in and out of physical reality, and as we do when we're sleeping. And so, yeah, some of the messages that I get and experiences is that they're working with me as sort of like ongoing education. So, always working with upgrades. They're always working at helping my human mind to be able to accommodate and relax into the reality of the ET side of things, because it can be a shock to the human mind waking up to beings in your room. And I've had, friends that I've stayed with, or they've stayed with me, and, we've woken up to things in the room together. So it's not something that I'm just always seeing by myself. I had a friend that I was on holiday with just around the Christmas New Year period. I think it was January actually. So going from New Year into January, or last year into January. And, I woke up seeing something in the room, and he also, woke up to seeing something in the room too. So it's good confirmation and validation to the human mind.
Oh yeah. So you're not going insane. But
exactly.
Well, you've had it going on since you were a little kid. So for you, you've kind of crossed off the insanity box, saying, "Nah, it's not that. I do actually see these things." When you were talking about your recollection and the kind of the dream vision that the ETs were giving you, you mentioned that they showed up, or they may show up by looking like doctors or somebody in a lab coat or a shaman or something like that. Is that very common? Is that something they do just so they don't, when they want us to have a memory of a specific, they're downloading something and they want it as a memory, so they don't show up as something either short and gray or tall and blue?
Yeah, sometimes I think it's also to kind of like buffer or blur for our consciousness, because they also don't want us to go into shock, the positive ones anyway. Mm-hmm. So I've woken up to, I'm not sure if I talked about it on your show last time or not, but I remember waking up, this would have been probably around early 30s. I woke up to some beings that were in lab coats, projecting themselves as like a doctor type, but the light that was illuminating from them, and as I was coming into like this conscious waking reality, I was awakening to a really long needle being pulled out of my left eye, but there was absolutely no fear. I felt so calm, and I knew that they were actually helping to kind of like alter my vision. So it was like an upgrade, because a lot of the time they will work at like monitoring us on a hormonal level if you're working in some ET programs. So that's something that I've experienced since teenage years, is as early as I can remember, with the hormonal monitoring. So I would wake up to almost like snake bite marks on my hips, and that would be when they were doing various checking and monitoring and hormonal testing, checking levels and different things, because they are interested in us as a species, but they do work with upgrading our species as well. And I don't think that DNA is just some physical kind of thing. The way that I see it, and the way that I see like the epigenetics, or like the gears of the DNA, is that they are affected and can be influenced harmonically. So like with sound, with energy, with vibration, I think we're able to alter and to work and upgrade our DNA in many more ways than just a physical level.
Wow. And when you're talking about the ET program, or if you're in the ET program, what do you think your role is in that program? So
for me, there's the feeling and memory of always feeling different from a young age. So I actually feel more ET than I do human, which I'm sure like a lot of the listeners out there will be nodding in agreement with always having felt different and feeling like perhaps that Earth is like a second home, or even remembering, living off-world lives, and this Earth life can feel quite foreign. And quite upsetting at times too, seeing the horrific things that happen all over the planet, and having come from places that are a lot more peaceful, where, global peace has already been achieved. And this is something that, the Earth life can be so foreign to a lot of us, in that we don't quite have that yet here on Earth. But part of our mission and job is to help to anchor that here on Earth. So it's really important that there is a lot of us that resonate with the ET, or even like angelic aspects, of these races, because that's part of like what we're here to do, is to anchor that here on Earth.
In your experience as being who you are, and having all these other experiences, all these other energies coming and going in your life, have you talked to anybody, or have you yourself ever been in the situation where you were pregnant and then all of a sudden the fetus disappears?
Yeah, so I've had that a couple of times, and it's interesting because the physical timeline reality that we have on an Earth level can sometimes be altered when this happens. So a few years back, I experienced and felt, and because I do have 3 children, 3 Earth children, so like I do know what it feels like to be pregnant, and to have the kind of sensations and hormonal change and physical feelings within the body. And what's quite common with ET contactees that have had these kind of things happen is that there'll be like a definite physical side of this that they experience and feel, but there'll also be like the emotional side of it too. And then sometimes you'll have this go on for, whether it's like days, weeks, or even a few months at times, and then all of a sudden you wake up and it's gone. It's like instantly waking up and feeling different, or feeling like that pregnancy has gone. And sometimes what can happen, and what people have experienced, as being part of a hybrid program, so that they could possibly be physically pregnant, or they can have like different energetic things that are going on as well. And sometimes there'll even be where you're physically pregnant and there's ET DNA that's blended or spliced with human DNA. So I don't think that, 100% of us here on Earth right now, I don't feel and think that, all of us are 100% human. I think that there is some splicing and things that are going on, and I'm not sure if many of the listeners have seen the series with Dakota Fanning. I think it was a Steven Spielberg series called Taken.
Yes.
That's actually something when I watched that really strongly resonates with me and a lot of other experiences. We watched that and we're like, okay, this is like our reality. This is what it feels like, what it was like for us. And the other interesting thing is quite often that this is generational. So it does tend to go back into, sometimes it'll skip a generation. It may skip, the parents' generation and go back to the grandparents. And I find that highly fascinating as well. So for anyone wanting to sort of see more information or see, what it's like, I would definitely recommend to watch that series, Taken.
Wow. It's something to take another look at, is that to see exactly what's going on with the what Spielberg did with that story and how he's presented it. Because a friend of mine, Samantha, who has had a number of these pregnancies, and she's actually been allowed to go visit her children she still is, well, quote unquote, abducted, and she has been since she was a teenager, and she's permitted now to go up and see her children and how they're doing and talk to them, and which is interesting. So they've given it. Yeah, it is fascinating, and if you have never heard of anything like this, it is very, very common with very, I should say, high vibration women who have had a lot of experiences with extraterrestrials since they were kids. It's quite common because I think they come in and they pick that whatever it is that's in you. Like you say, you're probably, you may be more ET than you are human, and they're just keeping tabs of you and have ever since you were old enough to remember.
Yeah, and what's interesting too is sometimes that they'll pick, so like for these hybrid programs, they'll have, a male and a female counterpart here on Earth, and then there'll be some kind of almost like an astral experience. So I've had myself different experiences where there's someone that I physically know here on Earth and we'll have a mutual dream. And just the memory and the feel and the touch of that kind of mutual dream experience is beyond normal earthly dreams. There's too much detail and too much physical feeling within that dream type space for it to just be a dream. And then to have the same recollection and information come through from that. And then sometimes to also feel that there's perhaps, a hybrid child or some kind of, like baby energy around that. I find that highly fascinating and interesting. And this is something that takes place all over the world. It's not just like one-off experiences. It's something that's really common. And I think a lot of people don't talk about it because they think that it will come across sounding crazy. And I think that's where, you have to know who's safe to talk to about this sort of thing. And I think, part of my mission as well is about being, open and transparent with this sort of thing. And, I do have a normal day job as well as this work as well, so able to have a foot in each world. It's not that, people that this sort of thing is happening to, that they're crazy. I know a lot of people that work very high up in different fields, so scientists and doctors and, different people like that have experiences, and it changes their life if all of a sudden they wake up to this kind of stuff happen. I think I'm very lucky in that, this has always been part of my reality, having had these sort of things happen. So I don't really know any other way to be.
Well, that's the whole thing. It's healthy because it's part of your reality. It's unhealthy to keep it to yourself and think you're crazy. And
yes, definitely.
I don't want to tell my parents, were staunch Catholics, and they'll, it's against all my belief system. It's against how I was raised, but it is such a firm, deep down part of me that I don't know what to do. Am I crazy? And you're off to the psychologist, and they're going to definitely come up with something, because that's what they get paid for. They'll throw some, you've got oppositional defiance or disorder, ADHD, and you should be gluten-free. What? No, I just want to talk to somebody about this. Well, that'll be $600, and here, take these 5 pills and go home. And I think that's, like you say, over generations, it's been pushed back. And like we kind of jokingly call people like us, and talking about things like this, it's talking about the woo-woo. It's that woo-woo kind of thing. It's one of those woo-woo people. And over time, I recall, and mostly women, the kind of the hippie-ish kind of, I don't know, hard to explain, smoking burlap and wearing cheesecloth, and just really connected to the earth people from back in the 60s and 70s, and seeing people who were hippies who are now in their 70s and 80s still kind of off in la la land and woo woo. Now I'm kind of looking at them differently, going, okay, they got it back then.
Yeah.
They just stepped into it and wore it, and people thought they were nuts, but no, maybe they weren't that crazy. Well, definitely some were, because in my own personal life, I know I've met some that are actually overly crazy, but there are some that just got it. They just understood. And a lot of times you look at the First Nations here in Canada, the North American Indigenous population, you in Australia with the Indigenous population there, you look at the shamans and you look at the medicine people, and they're all about the same. It's that
and they
higher
talk
vibration.
about a lot of the ETs that I've seen and experienced as well, and I find that really interesting. That I haven't grown up, in I guess in an Indigenous culture myself. We're surrounded by culture and history here in Australia, not as much as what we should be. I definitely think there should be more education in the schools about the original people and the original cultures of our countries. But what's interesting is when I have had the chance to speak one-on-one to, some of the elders, is that the stories match up. The blue beings that I've seen, some of the white Syrian ancient ones that I've seen, these are beings that they have interactions with, and they're aware of dimensional portals opening, and these beings walk out. We have correlating stories, and I find that fascinating. And it's just such good confirmation, especially coming from, a Western upbringing. And I was lucky that I wasn't indoctrinated into any religion as such. So I think I was lucky to escape that kind of reality, to be able to form my own opinions and things. And I think I've always been the type of person that, for having had experiences and it being just as real and valid as this physical 3D reality, I was able to form my own opinions and be able to question, both realities.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's in talking to people down in, I was down in Sedona, Arizona, and I went out on a UFO tour, believe it or not, and where you get night vision goggles and you watch the UFOs coming and going from a portal. And it was a portal that was once pointed out by the American Indians down there. They knew that these things are coming and going from it, but the portal was also pointed out to Belinda Leslie, who puts on the tour. It was pointed out to her by a crew of people from NASA.
Oh, wow.
Who also knew about the portal, and we'd look above this feature in the geographic feature at about a 40-degree angle, and after a while, they're coming and going back and forth in groups of 3 and 4, and some stop, and they light up, and they get dim again, and it was fascinating.
It is. That's something that we have here in Australia in particular places as well. And it's also something that, working with particular parts of the planet and particular ley lines and power points and, there's a lot of people that do grid work, working with crystals and working with energy and sound and vibration and meditation, and will choose to go to different power points on the earth, or even to create and open some. Even though there are beautiful places like Sedona, which I love, I didn't get to spend enough time there when I was there last year. I'd love to go back, because you definitely can feel the power and the vortex energy there. And this is also something that we can choose to work with and open in our own backyards. So the more that we skywatch in our backyards, the more that we're anchoring a certain state of consciousness. So yeah, you can see these sort of things in your own backyards and really work with and anchor these energies too.
I'd love to do that in my backyard. I just can't afford $4,000 for night vision goggles. She had like 6 sets of them. We were all wearing them. We thought these things were great. And you're pointing at the UFOs with the little laser hand pointer, and people would all focus in on it. They were great. And if you flashed them with the little laser pointer, they actually would stop, and then it was called powering up, and they get about 10 times brighter than normal, and then they go back to normal again, and then they'd keep going.
And isn't that interesting that I have the same thing happen on this side of the planet?
Oh, that is cool.
Yeah. So that's what I find really cool. And, I've got friends in Italy that have the same thing as well. And, we don't need to have the expensive night vision goggles and laser pointers and things. It really is through intent that that awareness or that connection will happen with the UFOs. So from my experience, I've had, day and nighttime contact. So seeing and taking photos and videos of UFOs at both day and night, it is easier to start seeing them with night vision and, seeing them at night, because the power-ups are much easier to catch on camera. But just having that intent and that open-hearted love and connection, when you actually contact and communicate with the UFOs or the beings and consciousness that is behind the UFOs, it really is, for me, I describe it as like seeing dolphins in the wild. There is that open-hearted joy and that feeling and connection and that wonderment when you see them. And it's like connecting with, a star brother or sister. They feel like family.
Oh, that's fascinating. And have you posted any of your daytime photos?
Yeah, so I've got, there's really cool Pleiadian triangle craft that I got a photo of, I think it was around July last year when I was in Yosemite. So just over a lake that's there. So it's a really cool one. It was also verified by ex-UK Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
So also my YouTube channel, you'll see some that are in daytime that are like pearls of light flying in the sky. One of them you can even see sort of like a shadow or outline of a being that's flying inside this pearl of light, which we also refer to or call a Merkaba. So it's like an energy field. And I think that some of the reasons that these ETs are contacting and communicating or even showing up like that is to show us what we're capable of on a human level. So if we look at stories of Buddha, and we look at stories of, monks and that are attained rainbow light body status, a lot of these beings are changing or altering or having a real conscious connection with their energy field and with their, it goes back to talking about the brain and about what kind of percentage of brain power are we utilizing. And I think that we're only just tapping into our abilities now. And there's also different meditations and apps that you can use and sort of headgear that work with, helping to keep you into a meditative state. There's one I think called, I'm not sure if it's called, Muse. That's the one.
It was developed by a bunch of students at the University of Toronto here in Canada, and I got one for Christmas a couple of years ago.
You'd be better to speak on it. How do you like it? Because that's something I'm looking into getting.
I loved it. And it's past tense, because what it does is it teaches you over a short period of time to focus and get into that meditative frequency, I guess the best way of putting it. And how it works is you can hook it up to your iDevice. It kind of just goes over your head. You put earphones in, and you listen to the sounds of, for example, it's like waves coming and hitting the shore and lapping up on the shore. If you're in the right focus and right brain wave focus, like brainwave. What's the best word? If you hit the proper brainwave for meditation, you will start hearing birds in the background, and the waves are very gentle. But as you come out of that vibration, out of that focus, the wind starts to pick up and the waves start to crash. So you can actually get to the point in your head where you know how to move your brain frequency down or up to get to the proper frequency. So for about a month I used it, and now I could just give it away to somebody because I can get there very quickly.
That's so cool.
So if for people who found it really hard and to meditate, this is the easiest way, because you actually teach your brain how to get to that frequency, and that's what it's doing. It's teaching you to identify what you're thinking of and how you feel when you get to that frequency. I gave it to a psychologist who works at the Operational Stress Injury Clinic, which deals with people with post-traumatic stress syndrome for the Canadian military and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And she was going to be using it for some of her clients just to cut through the busyness of their brain at night while they're trying to focus and meditate. And that's what it does. It cuts all the chaff out of there, all the other stuff, and you drill down and focus on that that sound, whether it's the leaves in the trees or the birds and the beach. It's whatever you had set it to, and it's actually a very good device to use. It's something you don't have to use every day forever, because you can. There are certain times you can do it for see if you can hold it for 2 minutes on that frequency. See if you can then work up to 12, then up to 20. Well, if you get up to 12, you already know how to do it. And it's really, if you have the meditation to fit in to that amount of time, it's good. But the Muse is a really nice little device, and it's I don't know how much it is. Santa got it for me, so. But if anyone out there, check out, Google the word Muse, M-U-S-E, and meditate, and support the good Canadian schools and universities that spend all that hard-earned money on making things for people to meditate. So it's kind of a nice little thing. I've opened up your YouTube page here. Let's see, Solreta Antaria, and lots of good UFO pictures here. This is actually very cool. And I forgot I am subscribed too. So it's like, I knew this from somewhere. UFO over Melbourne, Australia, or Melbourne, depending which side of the continent or on the globe you're on. Melbourne or Melbourne.
And this is, these are craft and UFOs that are seen all over the world. And that's what I find fascinating, is that, friends in Italy and America and, all other places, and a lot of my clients that are all over the world, we've all seen really similar things. And I find that, that helps to add to that validation as well, that, we are being visited as a civilization.
Yeah.
And if we look back throughout history of, stories and paintings and, different periods throughout time, you'll see, like, hidden within paintings or even in plain sight, pictures of UFOs painted into, like, religious paintings. And it's just, the more that you start to dig, the more that you unravel.
Yeah, from Hindu scriptures and Hindu paintings to Christendom, those little things flying off in the distance, they were just something common. Mm-hmm. And they always seem to be around when something great was happening, whether it was before a war or before a famous person was born or something. These things showed up, and off they went. You've had experience with reading for people, obviously, because that's what you do. Your psychic work. And I'll get into the aura drawings in a bit here, but this thing is kind of interesting, that because of the ET connection is very, very strong with you, when you're doing a reading for somebody, does it ever pop up that they are as connected to the ET side of things as you are?
Yeah, and it's funny because sometimes when there's, I think everyone's in different states of being open like to read. Some people you'll get come in for, like a normal day-to-day reading. They just want to find out about relationship or about work and that sort of thing. And perhaps that's where, I work more with someone that's like on a soul path mission or wanting to know or access different keys to like the next step for like upgrades and things. So I actually work with a lot of psychics myself. So I've done psychic readings for many psychics too, which is always so much fun and always interesting because you're able to work at a certain level. But yeah, with the ET contact stuff, it's funny. Sometimes I'll have clients that have never told anyone about their experiences or about the type of beings that they've seen or interacted with. And sometimes I'll see it plain as day, like a being next to them, walking around, or I'll talk about, I'm seeing this vision of you like on board a craft and you're inside this, it's like a tank, like a bathtub, and there's all these like lights and little tiny scavenger type beings that are circling around your body, and they're clearing and repairing and healing. And they're like, how do you know that? Like, no, I've never told anyone that. And yeah, I had that experience. And yes, it was like a month ago. And yeah, that happened. And I think for me, it's about being brave and not fearing like what I see. It's about just when I'm having it happen, it's like watching and feeling and being inside a movie. And I'm just relaying that on a verbal level to my client, like what I'm seeing, experiencing. And quite often it's about validation. It's about, with me providing that confirmation for them. It's such a huge sense of relief to go, I'm not crazy. Or yes, when that happened, this is like the extra information that I needed. So like I might provide, a piece of the puzzle that's missing, or I might go, well, this has happened in order for you to get into this part of the next part of your, your life, or to, it's pointing out that you're to work with this at a soul level. And of course, we all have our own free will and free choice too. So, things may happen to us and may be part of our life, but it's up to us whether we put that into action and whether we step forward into that path.
Well, that's what I was kind of wondering. My next kind of pushing that off to was if you are doing a reading for somebody and they are coming in to talk about, like, I'm applying for a job and I've never been to a psychic before, and for some reason I thought I'd come and talk to you, and the entire reading is ET related. Those are the ones that I find fascinating because basically they were steered towards the psychic in false pretenses. Like, no, go ask them about your job. And then they find out that,
with clients too.
They are flying through the universe every night when they fall asleep.
Yeah, that's sometimes where those clients do get steered to me. And it's, I have to use not only, like the psychic perception side of things, but you have to emotionally tune in and mentally tune in and sort of question and feel into it very gently whether this person is ready to be able to talk about this sort of stuff with. I had one lady, and this is, it just sticks out for me. I'm not sure if I've talked about it on your show, but I had a lady come to me, and it was to do with relationship side of things. And she was sitting in my dining room. It was a client that I had here, a local lady. And I'm seeing this ET walk around in the background behind her. And he had, it was like a sweater like they wore in Happy Days, the TV show. So like, that kind of like high school or college type sweater, cardigan type thing. This ET was walking around that had sort of like a, kind of like, he looked like a grey but had like a bigger, more of like a bubble type head. And he was walking around in this sweater, and it was hilarious because some of them will come more into this physical vibration. Some you'll see that are projected into your mind, like into your third eye, and you'll see it like a movie that's being played, whereas others you'll see them on both levels, walking like physically, like a soft kind of auric type glow. You'll see them physically there, and others you'll see on both levels. So he was there on both levels. So it was like undeniable that she'd had some kind of contact or experience. And I drew a picture, and she's standing there sitting there holding her mouth, kind of gasping, because this is a being that she had contact with, I think it was 2 nights before the reading with me. He'd appeared to her in her kitchen, and she'd never had any kind of experience like that whatsoever. So for me to see and verify that, it was just, I guess, extreme validation. And really nice to know, like for the client too, if they've never had experiences like that or don't know who to turn and talk to, that is kind of like that conscious validation. And then they're able to open up, and that's able to help them open up to a whole different part of their path and their conscious soul growth as well.
Now, would that turn out, would that have been because this being is a positive interaction in her life as opposed to a negative one?
Exactly. So
okay.
It's always when I'm doing a reading to, setting up that healing and protective space and kind of like, a bubble to work in, that we are working with beings that are there for the client's best and highest good. So then the information that we're getting, and also when certain beings do show up in the auric field or working with the client, we are checking in to make sure that they are there for the client's best and highest good, or that they love them unconditionally as well. Because you want to work with guides that have your best interest at heart and not just the ego. You don't really want to be working with beings that are just, stroking the ego. You want to be there with beings that are working with the client because they do have that connection and they do want what's best for the client. And then it's up to us whether we, step into that and whether we choose that path, because we really do have conscious free will and choice. We don't have to go down this way. We can sort of choose to shut down these experiences and these things. For some of us, it's much harder. It can be, very much there in our physical reality, but we really get to choose whether we talk about this stuff or whether we kind of just close that cosmic closet on everything.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if that's what I did for so long, because this all really just started making sense and coming to me in 2012. So I had an entire lifetime of doing other things. Now I'm trying to catch up. And
it's interesting that gateway time, a lot of people speak about similar experiences that, 2012 or 2013 was like an instigator for that to open up and for that closet to open back up again.
It was end of November 2012. I saw a psychic for the first time, and I have never looked back since then. and
now you're podcasting.
Yeah, I'm talking to all sorts of woo-woo people that I relate to, who can do aura readings and psychic readings. And I will probably end up calling upon you to do a psychic reading, because I'm going to run this by you, is my Patreon account thing. If people like my podcast and they donate $3 a month, or what does it work out a year, $36 a year or something, if I get enough people in there, I will be pulling names. I was going to do it once a month, but I think I might doing it once every 2 weeks to give a psychic reading away, and a past life regression to someone else, and a numerology reading for somebody else, or a chart for someone else. And at 2,222 people, I'll be drawing trips for 2, airfare, accommodation, and car rental, as long as you don't drive on the other side of the road, and and then to go to whatever is on their paranormal bucket list, whether they want to come down with you and watch if somebody's in New Zealand and wants to fly over to Australia and hang out with you and look at UFOs, and I do that for them. At 3,000, it used to be 4,500, but it's about 3,000 I think now, and then I'll bounce people around internationally. And so
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so what do you think of something like that in your psychic abilities? What do you think is a good idea?
Yeah, I do. I think it's a really good idea, and I think it helps to, connect this community even more.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't need the money because I'm not independently wealthy, but I'm retired and don't really have a lot of bills other than for this car I bought. But I can't pay for that. Really, it's all okay. It's what I'm trying to do is trying to give back to everybody who's tuning in. So that's the plan. By the end of the year, hopefully we can get enough people in the grid here where we can actually start pulling names and putting little groups together and off to some haunted location if you like ghosts in Glasgow, Scotland, to if you like UFOs, to Sedona, or down to Australia, or some nice place to go watch these things where it's not snowing, and do some Bigfoot stuff, and do a few conferences around the world. Really nice UFO conference over in Portugal, so you'll have to go. And you guys
nice.
you guys have them there too. You've got some good ghost conferences in Aussie land, Australia, and you had was a year or so ago. I was reading. Was it you who was going to a UFO conference outside of Sydney? Was that you?
Oh yeah, I went and did. There was one that does UFOs and ghosts called Paracon. So I did that a couple of years back, which was a lot of fun. You know, it's great spending a few days with a couple of people, or more than a couple of people, a few hundred people that are, you know, interested in this topic, and going and hearing the other speakers talk about this as well.
It's interesting. I was at a ghost conference down in just on the coast of Oregon last month, and what's interesting is having two people talk about the same subject but through different lenses. I saw this, and this is what it looked like to me, and then having someone else get up and speak about they saw the same thing, but it looked like this to them. Whether it was a Bigfoot or a ghost or something else woo-woo. It's like everyone looking at a car accident, but then having to articulate it from their angle, and it sounds like all a different car accident, but it's all the same one. And it's very interesting to have somebody else's perception of the same thing that you've experienced in life. Which is, you know, anything like a UFO. So you get 5 people looking at a UFO out with you one day, and then have them all write down a paragraph on what they saw and what it looked like, and then compare the paragraphs.
And I think it's really important when you do see and witness these type of things to really assess, like, what was the feeling of it too. So, you know, when I've done sky watches with people, I'm talking about, you know, when they fly over, tune into, like, is there a message? Is there a feeling that comes with this? Is there, you know, other extrasensory sensations or downloads or information that you're picking up when they fly over as well? And, you know, I just also want to put out there that not every paranormal experience is positive. I've been very blessed that, you know, the majority of the things that I've seen have been, you know, really positive or there for, like, you know, best and highest good. But out of the, you know, hundreds and hundreds of UFOs that I've seen, maybe only 2 were like a negative feeling. And what was interesting, and this is why I talk about, you know, tuning into how you feel, is that there was just a feeling of, oh, something doesn't feel quite right. And then it was just doing an energetic clearing, setting up more healing, more protective space. And I actually just, like, popped back inside and just thought, I don't need to be around here to witness, you know, that sort of energy. And then just came back out later when it had cleared. But yeah, the majority of the things that, you know, friends that skywatch and that as well, the majority of the stuff that we do see is positive and is here for change and is benevolent.
Well, that's interesting you brought that up about the a couple, you know, the minority were negative. You did mention a while ago that you had, you know, ETs would show up in your life, and most of them were positive. Tell me about the ones that weren't. What made them different from everyone else?
I guess the easiest way to describe it and the easiest way to notice it is, for me, they showed up, I guess we could probably, on an earth level, refer it to as more like a vampire type energy. So it was an entity or, you know, being that would try and invoke fear or try and, you know, like feed into a certain or invoke certain feelings and emotions, or even projecting, like at a dream level, certain scenarios or situations that they knew would invoke fear. So what's interesting is when you get to the state of where you're able to kind of wake up within your dreams or consciously become aware, you're able to kind of stamp your foot and say, I'm not going to put up with this stuff. And you're able to kind of like stop that kind of energy feeding happening in a dream, because some of these negative type entities will really feed on like that fear energy. It's similar to that movie, was it Monsters Inc.? That Pixar movie way back now. And the monsters are opening up dimensional portals, which appear to be like a bedroom door to a children's bedroom, and then they're doing a scare. And that energy that's powered from that scream and that fear and that scare is helping to power that the energy or the electricity in the monsters realm or the monsters world. Mm-hmm. And I think this is, you know, it's quite similar to these negative beings that appear in this conscious reality. So it's always really good if you wake up out of something like that, to get up out of bed, to change the energy, change the state, Because if we just lay there and try and go back to sleep, it's so easy for them just to slip back. They're still kind of attached to our consciousness. So we really have to make a conscious break from those sort of energies and entities. So to do a clearing, perhaps put on like a clearing meditation, go and get yourself a drink of water, go outside, ground, do something that's going to break that conscious connection.
Yeah, I've had the sleep paralysis, but that is mostly a human ghost doing the same thing. And just making you frightened and just sucking off your adrenaline, just draining that adrenaline from you.
Yeah, so there is ET energies that can be similar, like waking up with paralysis. Sometimes it can be, you're coming back into body consciously, but your body's not physically connected as such just yet.
Yeah. And that's where I get them. I go to the archangels and try to push them out through that.
Yeah.
The negative spaceships, though, that's interesting. Now, you talk about Palladians and the Sirius star system and things like that. Where do you think the grumpy gusses come from, these little negative ones?
Some of them are, from star systems that are more common, but some of them, come from places that we don't really have names for. So like when we look into the night sky and we see, the physical star systems, that's sort of, I guess, part of like our physical 3D reality, but not every being comes from a physical 3D reality. Some of them will come from places that are, energetic, or, they exist in a non-physical reality. So some ETs are physical like us. Some are kind of like sub-physical, or, part energetic, part physical. And others are purely, will work more at like a psychic level.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I just trying to stay away from them. If I'm kind of worried about now. Okay, hold on. These ones are okay, and those ones are. Oh, come on! They all have to wear signs or something.
This is where. Yeah, and this is where, like, how you're talking about doing like the Muse program, and we're talking about meditation. You get to start to really become perceptive of your own energy and your own consciousness, and you start to learn what feels right to you quite quickly and what feels like it's of a lower or a more egoic state. And then you're able to step in and do the clearing, do smudging, put on like music that's going to clear. We're able to kind of adjust and accommodate ourselves a lot more easily.
Yeah. Let's talk about this interesting thing you do, this aura reading. And you do a lot of things. You obviously do psychic work, and you also do some past life stuff too, don't you?
Yeah. And I've done some ET regressions and things. Unfortunately, I don't have the space where I'm currently working from to be able to do the regressions at the moment. But yeah, definitely with the readings, that's something that I can be doing over Skype. So it really doesn't make a difference. A lot of people are like, I'd really prefer like to fly to the other side of the world and come and have one with you. And I say to them, it doesn't make a difference. Even, once or twice I've had Skype cut out and we've had no visual, but I can still see energy just as clearly, in my third eye as I can, looking at someone physically. So it doesn't make a difference to picking up information. It's definitely my passion as well, is working with people doing the aura drawings and the psychic work, which I do all rolled into one.
Yep.
So, when I am doing an aura drawing, I'm utilizing that psychic information and psychic skill, and also utilizing the tarot cards too.
Okay. Now, when you do the psychic, you do the aura drawings, do you actually see the aura around them, and then do you make a sketch, or a colored sketch?
Yeah, that's right. And also working with the person's guides and working with my higher self and their higher self, I then also pick up a lot of information that's so like I'll draw the colors, but for me, colors are a language in itself. So say like I see certain colors around someone, like I might see the color of gold. So gold will sometimes be like a spiritual information or learning or education that's streaming into the person's life currently. And it's to do with, picking up information, not from books and things as such, because when we're looking at education and learning on a physical, practical level, it will quite often appear as the colour yellow, like when they've got extra study and things going on. But if it's more of the colour gold, it's like their higher self or their guides directly, either channeling or communicating information to them. So it's about them learning to meditate and pick up the information from within rather than going without and doing study with books per se.
Oh, that's fascinating. If you go to the website, listener, at solretapsychicreadings.com, you'll see a little bit about the, I think it's in the About section, actually. Yes.
Yeah, and there's an origin section too.
Yeah, there's a picture of one of the the aura drawing and psychic reading section. There's a picture of what she's doing, and it's the drawing that she's made, which is all very colorful. And when you say color is a language, I guess if you see blue in me and you see blue in your neighbor, it means the same.
Oh, sort of. It's kind of like a generalization, I guess, with the colors. But then when we tune in, we work with the guides and, I sort of psychically pick up more information, whether it's see, hear and feel, different informations, because I'm very lucky in the sense that I get it as multiple streams. So I'm not just seeing things, I'm picking up a whole gamut of information at the same time. So I would say my psychic senses are very much like blended and work together as like one muscle. And then that's when we also do the tarot cards. So we'll listen to the information the guides are telling us to do with what we're seeing in the aura, because they'll just keep building and building upon the information and laying down, bit by bit. And then what we do when we tune into the cards, I work with them through psychometry, which is the picking up of information through energy. So I tune in holding my hand over the cards and I see, hear and feel extra information coming from the cards, and the guides are also picking up and telling me different things. And then when we get to the point of where the energy becomes sort of empty, or not empty, but it's like the guides are like, okay, we're done. We can flip the card over. We always get confirmation for what they've said. The picture will be on the card. It's sometimes down to the exact image that we've described or the exact scenario that we've described. And the beings, they're quite comical in the sense of, because they know that our human minds need validation in order to accept and believe. So the cards are just really another tool that we can use to help provide that validation to the human mind. And it blows me away every single time. Doesn't matter how many readings I do, when the guides have spoken it and, we're getting the information and the cards face down, and then we flip it, it makes me laugh. It blows me away every single time.
And the guides are all sitting back on, when will she just trust us? She knows this is going to happen.
I think for me, I really do trust. Yeah, and no matter how crazy or how strange and bizarre the images that they're showing me are, I will relay it and the client will be like, oh, wow, I've never told anyone that before. Or how do you know that? And I do also have a little bit of a skill with, I do have some everyday clients come to me that aren't perhaps into the ET side of things, asking about Tinder and, dating apps and things like that. And can you tune in and see, what this person might be like? And I've had some really funny things happen. This is kind of what's going on for him. And, then my clients have gone on dates with them and they're like, how did you know that? I had one client, she showed me, I think it was about 10 different photos. And one of the photos I tuned in and I started to describe his personality. And I'm like, oh, I'm seeing a pier and I'm seeing a yacht. And she hadn't met him. She hadn't gone out with him. And I'm like, oh, and also he's a multimillionaire. She's like, what? She's like, how do you know this? How are you picking up on this? She went out on a date with him that night. He took her to his yacht and everything that I said was accurate and true. And it just blew her away. So I've seen her quite a few times for different, different things like that. And it's fascinating. I think psychometry is such a underutilized skill that we all have, and it's just a matter of practicing and using it.
Now, psychometry is being able to get feelings from an inanimate object, correct?
Yeah, so sometimes you don't even have to physically touch it. You can also use tarot cards as a tool to access that information, like a gateway energy into that. So you could pick a card to represent a certain situation, a certain energy that you want to tap into, or even a person to read. And you can use that as sort of like a gateway card into that. But other times it's useful, like, you know, to hold a piece of jewelry and pick up vibrations or emanations off that piece and be able to tune in directly to find out more information. Photos are also another good one to be able to tune into the energy of someone.
What was the other one?
Oh, photos.
Oh, photos. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Your accent left me in the dust there for a second. Yeah, well, I can look at a photo. Well, since 2012, I can look at a photo and see if you're high vibration or not.
Yeah.
Just by looking at
it. Incredible.
I could do it walking down the street. I can pick them off walking down the street. And it was like, I used to say it was my divination that I was supposed to go around telling people what an empath was and see if it resonated with them. And like, just leave my card and ride off into the distance. But I can see it in photographs of people too.
How cool is that?
Yeah, so
you're making me wonder what you pick up in my photo, James.
Oh, yeah, that's a gimme. Hey, when you do your readings, or when you connect with your spirit guides, do you actually see them?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Sometimes you'll get, because some of them are, you know, more physical than others, and some of them are more energetic. Sometimes you'll even get orbs that come in and you'll see them flying around a person when you're doing the reading, but they won't necessarily have a human form. Or sometimes when they kind of go from an orb into a human form, it's like for our human consciousness or our human mind to be able to relate to them, you know, and to be able to relate to the certain form in which they're appearing. And that's the same for names with the beings as well. So when I'm doing a drawing and I'm drawing, I always draw it exactly as I see it, because I try and stay as true to form as possible, because I think that, you know, the information isn't to be watered down. It's just to be able to relay it and keep it as pure and as close to the way that it comes through. So the guides will also quite often give us vibrational names, because they talk about for our human consciousness, in order to kind of like learn or to recognize that energy. So quite often a guide will have a name that has a few syllables or like a few vibrational syllables. So it will come through. So from my name, for example, so Solreta is like a syllable name, Solreta. And what each of those syllables does is stream through like a different vibration or a different energy, which makes up the consciousness of who I am. So with guides, it's very similar. So when we say the guide's name 3 times or more, always making sure that we set up a safe space and energy and that they're working for us for our best and highest good before we do any work with guides or meditation or ETs and beings. But like say we say that guide's name, so say Samara, like say we're working with a guide called Samara, it would be simply just to state the name Samara, 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 you know, 3 times, and we're able to tune in and feel and sense that energy. So when we get versed and practiced at it, we don't have to say the name. We're able to just recognize that energy or that vibration come in, and we're able to go, oh, such and such is trying to contact me in a meditation. Okay, what is it that you're trying to show me, or what is it that I need to pay attention to?
Okay, that's interesting, because no one's ever told me about saying it 3 times, and I have my primary spirit guide, I was told his looks by someone who he appeared to, he looked like somebody who lived in Egypt about 30,000 years ago. And I said, oh, that's kind of cool. What's his name? And the psychic says he's laughing because humans always want to put names on things. Didn't even dawn on me what she said. And then she said that he'd never been earthbound. Total went over both of our heads. And it was about a year later, I had one of those photographs taken where you kind of see your aura and all that. Oh, yeah. And I had this couple of tall blue things behind me and a short kind of white fuzzy thing to my left. And you see the tall blue ones are on the right behind me. And a shaman psychic walked by, looked at the photograph and said, oh, your guides are ETs. And then he walked away and I went, what? And then it totally made sense. Yeah, he's an ET because he's never been earthbound and, you know, and he didn't have a name. But I called him Matthew because I'm human and I got to stick a tag on it. But when I was doing readings for people, I would take deep breaths, and as I exhaled, I would say Matthew. And I'd do it 3 times. And
there you go.
I would ask for him to introduce me to the other guy. Because when I do a reading, I don't see guides, I see like your grandmother show up over on your left side. And then on your right side, I'll see, to me, it's more of an angelic realm. I'll see like angels. And every so often, I'll see a tall blue light or a pink light. And I either take those as ETs or I take them as light being relatives. But they can't, because they can't go to the other side. They're on more of the higher vibration side.
Yeah.
So I don't get guides at all.
And I think that's, you've got a lot of skills in tuning into different frequencies, and that's, similar for myself as well, in that I do see people that have passed, but I choose, unless they're really urgent to get through to that person, which sometimes they are, and sometimes they have a real big life force energy that, is able to like step up some frequencies. I find for me, doing the mediumship side of things, when people are passed on, I prefer to pass them on to someone who does pure mediumship, because I tend to get more tired and drained during those sort of readings, and it takes a bit longer to recover from that. Whereas when I'm doing readings with beings like ETs and beings that are, working from like higher vibrational states, it energizes me. I just, I'm so in love with that sort of work and passion that I find that I can do, reading after reading, that it doesn't tire me. Whereas if I'm doing more the mediumship side of things, how do you find that, James?
If I was to read person A at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I found this at conferences, when people walk up and start talking to me, all of a sudden some relative will run in and want to explain something, or just want to say hi, or want to relate something. And the relative will look like a tall man in a brown suit. And then an hour later, another person will show up, completely different person. But the person who shows up is not exactly the same, but it's a short man in a brown suit. It's like I get all the brown suits at once, and I'm thinking, oh, this can't be right. Because am I just adding brown suits to them? Or am I adding the lady in the blue dress who passed away in the 70s, and the skirt goes just below her knee, and she's wearing a little blazer thing with a brooch, and then I get another one with a different colored blazer and a different colored skirt and a different type of brooch or a flower, and I'm thinking, why? They all shop in the same place, and it's all today I get the same thing. So I start questioning myself, and then I have to think back, well, if they passed around the same time and they were in their 60s, that's kind of a common thing to wear. It's like, well, where you are, the most frightening thing you ever see on the road in Australia are bowlers. A whole bunch of old folks piled in a car wearing white clothes and white hats, because that car is not going the speed limit. It's going to go 50 kilometers under the speed limit. Everyone's wearing a hat. You have no idea who's driving, because they don't. So it's like, if you had a bowler die, they're all going to look the same, because they're all going to wear their little lawn bowling outfits. And I know that from driving in Australia. You don't want to get behind them.
No,
I was back there in the 80s, and I'd probably still be there now. And two things: not getting caught into a traffic circle that I'd never been in before, and getting behind a group of bowlers on their way to lawn bowling. But it's one of those things. If they passed in this time and they were about this age, that's a common thing for them to wear. So I kind of have to shake that out of my head and go, okay, show me something else. But I also don't, because of this, talking to people for 4 years on another radio show, internet radio show, I do understand that once a family member comes through, and for example, it's like there's a man dressed as a clown beside you. Oh, my dad, he used to dress as a clown. That's what he did for work. That's it. I'm not going to go any further. I'm not going to go, okay, show me something else. Well, no, it's smarten up. He's shown you he's a clown, and now he's showing you back as the dad, because we've confirmed that is your dad. I'm not going to go say, well, can you tell me, did he smoke a pipe? Did he jingle change in his pocket? Did he, all these other things? Did he have his initials on his forehead? No, stop with the clown. You got it right. Move on and actually pass the message on. But I've heard people do readings where the entire reading, or on the radio show anyway, for 10 minutes was all describing the dad. After the guy said, he asked my dad. Oh, yeah, perfect. How would you know that? That is my dad. Yep, that is definitely my dad. Well, thanks for calling. Meanwhile, dad's going, no, I wanted to tell him about driving off the cliff tomorrow. What are you doing? But, we get through that stuff. And that's a couple of things that I really have to focus on, is identifying the individual coming through quickly and then moving on to whatever the message is. But sometimes the message comes before the person. And I don't hear it. The visual that I get in my head of the person does hand signals, various things with their hand, which I'm doing now and you can't see, so it's relevant. But they do certain things, and I've learned what those motions mean. But I also get a download of stuff that it's not coming from me, it's coming from them. And I'm getting better at definitely understanding it started here and it ended there, and everything else before that and after that is my own thought. You see what I'm saying? That's the hard part.
Yeah. I just find it so fascinating hearing the way that other psychics and mediums work as well. So for me, sometimes I can feel the guides almost like searching through my head like it's a filing cabinet, and they're pulling out different examples or different things that I may have seen or witnessed or felt or, had happen to use as a reference to help communicate or convey something to the client. And I find that interesting that you get the hand signals.
Yeah, and the hand signal, like if you put your left palm out and chop it with your right hand, that means you have a decision coming up, an important decision.
Oh, yes. That makes sense.
Putting your palms together like you're praying and then opening up like you're opening a book, that means you're on path. Like
wow, I just got goosebumps.
And if they pat you on the shoulder, that means they like where you are in your life. And I take all 5 fingers of my right hand and start putting them together and then kind of going in circles on the palm of my left hand. That means you have work to do.
Oh, yeah.
It's like you're writing, but you're writing with all your fingers. It's like, you still have some work to do. So, and then everything else it comes through in, if they want to say, I'm sorry about something, they will I'll just get, I'm sorry, but you know what I'm talking about. And, it comes very, very quickly. So it's still juggling to determine, am I catching up to what they're saying, or am I thinking this, and why would I be thinking this? So that's the hard part for me, and it's supposed to get easier, allegedly, but I don't know. And it does. The other thing is I have a tendency of walking around open, which is kind of creepy, but because I'll be standing in my little local coffee shop, and I'll be looking at the coffee shop owner, and his dad came through, and I was looking at, is that your dad, or your grandfather? Was it grandfather? Dad or grandfather came through anyway, and he was dressed in weird little khaki shorts, and ended up being he was in the Italian army during the Second World War. So yeah, he'd be probably in North Africa in these little khaki shorts and a weird black feather in his hat, and after that he just was all I got that he was a bit of a rounder. He was a bit of a fighter, a scrappy guy, and he just thought he'd come through and say hi. But
and some of them are characters, aren't they?
Yeah, and
the ones that come through.
The people that come through are mostly the person who has volunteered to be that in between with their spirit guides and them. That kind of, as your guides want to give you the hair on the back of your neck standing up, they don't have to drop their vibration down as quickly, and you don't have to reach up. They just give it to your volunteer relative who does it for you.
Yeah.
And that's who I see, the in between.
That's cool.
Yeah, but if I'm doing cards, that's just standing looking at you. But if I do cards, I ask my guide to connect me with their guide, and then we just go with the cards. And I flip a card over. And I was funny. I actually had a friend of mine who I gave her a whole bunch of business cards, and I said just put 7 of them down, and I flipped them over and looked at the white side, and I did reading for her on those. So it's just a focus point, really.
It really is. Yeah. It's just a tool, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'm getting used to just sitting in front of somebody, taking a couple of deep breaths, opening my eyes, and go, oh, nothing for you today. Or, yes, your grandmother here and wants to talk to you about some decision you have to make. And you have this many angels over your right shoulder. And some tall blue person or family member. And then I explained kind of the angels are, these are your guardian angels. They'll, make sure you don't step out in front of a bus, but they also have your itinerary. So when it's time for you to step in front of a bus, they're going to kick you. They're the ones that push you out in front of the bus. So they know what's coming. I think I'm going to let you go because I think we've talked way too long. Well, actually, no, that's not right. I've talked way too long.
It's been so much fun. I always love chatting with you. It's always such a joy.
Oh.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you, Solreta Antaria. Now, please go to her website, solretapsychicreadings.com. That's SOLRET. R-E-T, stop it. SOLRETA, Solreta Antaria at solretapsychicreadings.com. And doesn't matter if you're all over the world. Hey, you can pay her in Australian dollars, which is like Mexican pesos, isn't it? I'm not really sure. No, it's not, because I've been to Australia. It's not that expensive, but it was more than the Canadian dollar, which is still way less than the U.S. dollar. So save up some U.S. dollars and get a deal. And please go to her website. It's very, very cool. It shows you about her aura drawing psychic readings. And you can also go check out her shop for her recordings on everything from, what have you got? You've got, what was the free, not free meditations, but there's meditations and...
Oh, there's some free ones on my website as well.
Oh, look at you, giving away stuff free. I'm going to have to do that. Download some free stuff. And also at the front at home, you can click on her YouTube. So do that and subscribe to Solreta Antaria's YouTube and check out her videos on UFOs that she's filmed.
And I'm quite responsive on Instagram and Facebook as well. Mainly Instagram.
Mainly Instagram. Oh. And what's your name on Instagram?
And so it's just my name, Solreta. So SOLRETA _Antaria. ANTARIA.
Good. I wanted you to say it with your accent. Again, thank you very much, Solreta. It's really nice talking to you again. And when I get an opportunity and draw somebody's name for a psychic reading, I'm going to be calling you up and getting a reading done with you.
Thank you. Thanks so much, James.
I see dead people.